Here with Aldon Baker. We're at the Baker's Factory. This is second year we've come and visit with you, and kind of reason why is you've actually already made some updates. The facility has grown quite a bit in size. You went from the original workshop we're sitting in right now, 2 supercross tracks, outdoor tracks. You guys actually added on a whole nother side. Can you tell us a little bit of what's going on here now?
Yeah, it's basically just what I call evolving to provide riding area and obviously workshop for the rest of the KTM and Husqvarna group. So it's been good. There's definitely been a demand for the East Coast program and facility, and so that was a bit of a no-brainer to start evolving and creating that other area and also it's more of a feeder system for this side. So we've got the Troy Lee, most of the Troy Lee team riding over there, and when I talk of riding, we obviously go through, everyone gets to use all the tracks. So, but basically their workshop is set over there. Then the rest of Husky, including some of their amateur guys coming up to pro, and then also KTM off-road. So it's just creating some extra garages, and also that we can include more of the athletes for the KTM Husky group.
And then of course on this side, your main shop, it's kind of I guess I want to say all in one. You have the gym in here, the actual workshop here, kind of everybody that's part of your 4 main group are all working in here together. Yeah. While on the other side, it's kind of segmented a little bit different. You have garages for like specific teams or uses. If KTM off-road, Husky, so they're all kind of contained. It's a little bit different building setup. Why'd you spread it out like that? Yeah,
well, this one when I started, I also thought that I may have to bring in big machines in, some of my building equipment, or use the dozer or water trucks and stuff like that. So I needed to have the height. When we moved further down the line, it wasn't needed. So going forward, when I was going to add more workshops, it's not efficient to have such a high roof. If you don't need it. It's extra space you need to heat and cool and keep together. So going forward, I made it more like a standard garage. So the other side has its garage with its own bathroom, toilet and shower. So, and then also with the option that if they are testing or do need some privacy, they can separate themselves from each other. And I think that that's an important thing as we start moving forward with the different riders and the different groups between 450 and 250, and obviously off-road.
Now, that side of the facility, I mean, you're one man. It's 5 tracks, 2 big shops, a ton of riders. Clearly, you can't take care of all of it. Basically, who helps you run this whole situation? How many people are here on a daily basis?
Well, I have 2 guys that fall directly under me with regards to the facility. One, Corey, my track guy, and then Dan is overall maintenance, taking care of the odd things, anything that breaks, and also equipment maintenance. Also helps with setting up the gates, cleaning that up every day, and making sure that all the little pieces run smoothly. So I do finally have help. And then I also have Tyler Rattray, who's the trainer on the other side there, that's oversees that group, and then he relays to me with what's kind of going on, so I can also find out how that is obviously running, and create that system where I already know kind of who's coping with what and how they're dealing with different loads and different stresses, because ultimately the goal is to bring someone from that group over to this main area here once a rider, like in the situation where Ryan Dungey retires. We want to be able to create where we can have a feeder system to this side. So a couple of goals were in the thought pattern with developing that program over there as more of a feeder system and a development side, so that we can get one circle building that makes sense and runs as good as you can possibly have it.
And ultimately, that's basically when you say feeder system, it's basically servicing KTM and Husqvarna, because you have some sort of you explained it a little bit earlier, kind of an exclusive thing with them.
Yes.
People might mistake it. They don't actually, I guess to say you're not paid by KTM and Husqvarna to train the riders. All of them still take care of that, but it's the way. Could you maybe explain a little bit basically how your deal with KTM and Husqvarna works and what your position is with them?
Well, my relationship with them is obviously I'm their exclusive motocross, trainer out here. So, and then the facility is exclusive for them under that umbrella, which is obviously KTM and Husqvarna. So the goal is to take care as much as possible with their premier guys. And the benefit for me is obviously there is, a feeder system coming from that group to the facility. They have committed to me as I've committed to them for the next 4 years. And the balance between, obviously, yes, the riders still cover my costs, but ultimately, I have the deal with them that it's their riders that are coming here. So the balance and the agreement makes sense for them and obviously for me, because it's a big undertaking and some big loans that I have to create and develop this place. I think it's a great relationship, and it's been building, and they see the same vision that I see with trying to create a really top-notch East Coast facility that provides the training and riding for their riders. When we look at it, most of the races are also on the East Coast. It makes sense to have a base here that is, run what I call, the right way, if per se, for their athletes.
Now, when you mentioned, big loans, big location, I guess people almost have to change a little bit what they perceive you as. I mean, before your whole previous career involved in motocross, you were an individual trainer hired by a rider to just take care of their dietary, their on track stuff, just their kind of their routine per se of what they were doing to be in shape for racing. Now in this situation, Baker's factory is more than just a couple tracks. I mean, it's a business for you. You made the step from trainer to a full, I guess I'd say, service. I mean, like I said, that you have all the shops here, all the tooling for all the guys use, all the cabinetry. There's all the heavy equipment here. There's a lot that goes into this. If you add up all the freaking receipts, there's a lot that goes into this. I mean, what made you want to go from just being able to just check on one rider to basically building a business instead around this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as it started was to first prove me as a trainer and that my system works, and that was the goal to do that. But as you evolve, you soon learn, and for me, I was always at the mercy of a rider who owned their own track. That has started to get less and less, because I believe the riders also understand the costs involved to have your own track. And then the predicament that they're in is when they do finish up and retire, what then happens with the facility that's only beneficial to someone that is racing or preparing for riding. So with me, in order to keep or to create a business as a trainer in this sport, I ultimately would have to have my own facility, but that comes at a massive cost, and I couldn't get the loans in the beginning to do that, and it has taken years to try and develop relationships and to almost form where you have enough credibility that in order to get a loan that they understand that this guy's business makes sense and it's not such a high risk deal. Not to say that it still isn't a risky deal, because the amount of costs that are outlaid with equipment and moving dirt and providing workshops to make this system run is astronomical. So kind of went into it blind, but I knew that if I didn't, I'm not creating a business. I'm a one-man show, and then when I'm finished training, I've got to find something else, and it is what it is. So I feel in order to keep going forward, and also with the knowledge that I've learned over the last 18 years, how do I move that into business and train other trainers and develop a system that is building riders and creating that full circle where as a rider moves on or retires, you have another one coming through, and it makes sense for the teams. So this is how this is all originated. And obviously it just started with initially, hey, I've got to have a place that I can have, at least my 4 riders come and train and ride. But how can I make that a business? And yes, you can't do it with 4 guys.
Yeah.
That doesn't even make any sense. So yes, it has to evolve and get bigger, but without becoming what I regard as basically a public track. You have to, create that feeder system and be tied in with at least a manufacturer that believes in your vision and your goals too.
Yeah, so at this point, between your 4 in the main area, TLD and Husky, you have amateur kids here, you have some KTM off-road guys that come out. You could have as much as, probably like 15 guys here at a time or something with that manufacturer, as high as somewhere over the 10 mark at least, huh?
Yeah, and I've always been, where I in order to focus and do the job properly, you want to be dealing with almost the least, heck, in a perfect world, one would be the easiest. But you couldn't run this place with one guy. Yeah. So you got to find that balance where I can't, in a perfect world, if I had 30, then I could pay the loans off quicker and do this, and probably do more. But there is that line that you got to try and walk where you don't have too many that you lose focus on what you do have, So I've always felt that I've stayed very exclusive and in order to do the job right. And then I've had to negotiate now where I still do the job right and still keep the focus on what I feel, between 4 and 6 guys for me is max. I prefer 4, but it's doable and I've done in the past. But I feel with the facility and everything else that I have to oversee, that's about right. And that's why it was key to try and evolve and develop more of the facility to provide, but also then have another trainer under you and have them oversee those riders and build it that way. But also stay exclusive, that you're not just a free-for-all and people get lost in the cracks, because at this level, if you miss something, it can be quite a disaster.
So a little bit about the tracks themselves you have here. So we have 2 large outdoor tracks on the property. You have 2 red clay supercross tracks and one, I don't know what to call it, one like a white sand,
what I call more of a California track. It's more of a
is it a DG?
Well, it's a harder clay mix, and to me, it aligns itself a little bit more with what the California tracks are. And obviously, we have races on the California side, and then we have a lot of races on the East Coast side. So you're trying to develop where you're covering your bases the best possible. And thank God, really relative to this property and availability around it, I've managed to get 3 different types to do it. Even with the red clay, one's slightly different to the other one, and that's good because you always want to be challenging the riders and have it different because they go to a different track every weekend and race with different dirt and conditions.
Well, speaking of, 3 supercross tracks, that at least gives you 3 layouts to work with. How often do you guys change them? Much during the season, or?
Not too much during the season. Obviously, there's possibly a couple little changes on some jumps or maybe a little rhythm lane here or there. But and then you obviously redo whoops quite a few times during the season. But it is a big undertaking to flip the dirt and redo a whole new track, and it takes time too. So once you're in the season, you don't really have that time to flip a whole track. Now I could do it, but really when you've got 3 that you can rotate through, you probably don't need to do that as much as if you had just 1. So.
And then the outdoor tracks, I would say, some people see private properties, say, kind of like Barsha's or Baggett's. The outdoor tracks are insane. To the normal person, they are almost unrideable. I've walked one of yours and just viewing at the others. There's still challenging sections on them, I'd say, but by no means are they completely massive overkill. Do you guys design them like that enough to keep a pro-level rider interested, but not so much that you can cause injury during the week or something like that? Do you take that into account?
Yeah, you got to take those things into account because they'll do a lot of laps here, and you don't want it to become where it's dangerous. It needs to be challenging. but not dangerous. And the other big thing too here is, we don't have a lot of elevation in Florida, and for good reason too, because the amount of rain that we can have in one afternoon or one day, that it would require a lot of maintenance too if you had big elevation because of rain ruts, and dealing with the water. So you got to get a bit of a mix where you have the track challenging, but you need it as safe as it can be, and then also that its maintenance can be done right, and includes the drainage. So there are quite a few factors that you need to analyze when you're building tracks, and obviously then maintaining them.
So last one for you, just talking purely the facility itself, the actual size of the property. Maybe you can tell us a little bit how you ended up here, because originally you were training Avilo at his property before you left, which is oddly enough pretty darn close by.
Yeah.
You can hear bikes riding at the other one, right?
Yeah.
You can't sometimes. How'd you end up here? Why did you end up in this location? The size of the place, just some stuff like that.
Well, it was really what was available at the time when I was looking for, I knew in a perfect world I needed something that was more than 50 acres, but I didn't need something more than 100. And then this one fell in at 93 acres, and it was available, and it does come down to price. I had to get a loan, to buy the thing, and there was 3 properties at the time that were available, kind of around the same, but some of the pricing was way out of my range. And this one came up as honestly, I think it was a godsend, because the price was right, the size was right, and the location was pretty much close to where I was originally working out of. So all of those pieces of the deal came together. The next thing that you really got to be on point here is getting it permitted for motorcycles, and that can be a challenge. This one was a lot easier because I didn't have any water on it, or marshlands or things that are environmentally a problem. Everything was pretty standard, and even around this area, doesn't really affect anyone with sound or anything like that. But those are all the factors that you have to look into and get passed by the county in order to make it all happen. So in the beginning, it was just, and I said this was just cattle land, so there was a lot of development that needed to happen once I'd got through those initial phases. So it was a challenge, but thank God it all pieced together, and we have got it going. And now, 4 years later, we're definitely over the hump for sure.